everyone! Welcome to the Fandom Post Radio podcast. I am your host for this week, Kate, and joining me, per usual, is Kestrel.
Hello.
And Cain.
Hello.
And DJ.
That is me, hello.
And we are here to talk about anime, and we're here to talk about the spring season of anime, which has just ended. And it's been a hot minute since we recorded, and the last episode, nobody was really talking about the season shows because horrible things had happened, so... And I wasn't even here for that. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, but first we've got news, so let's do news.
Alright, let's see if this does not take 3 hours this time. First piece of news, so Discotheque had another Discotheque Day, almost a month ago at this point. And it was kind of a shorter, quieter one, but they announced a few things, as always, including the original Shaman King anime, which they will initially be releasing the 4Kids dub of, and then later the uncut Japanese version, including the few uncut dub episodes that 4Kids attempted to do in partnership with Funimation. So that should be interesting to check out. And... among other things, they also announced that Lupin the Third Part 5 will finally be getting a Blu-ray release after many years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, is the new Shaman King like a straight up reboot that like people wanted? Well, like was the first one really bad?
No, the first one was good. I mean, the 4Kids dub wasn't. It was just...
Well, of course.
It was just incomplete, I think.
Yeah, because I saw that it was coming out it was at least slated to release this season. And I knew about it already. It's just when I saw it again when I was checking the schedules a couple days ago, I was wondering if like people wanted this or...
Yeah, I think the first one didn't cover it all and might have taken some liberties, so I think it's, your typical go back and reboot it and do the full faithful manga adaptation.
Who was asking for this is my question.
What, the Discotheque license?
No, Discotheque licenses everything under the goddamn sun.
Yeah.
No, I meant like in Japan, who was asking for like a reboot of Shaman King. It just seems weird. It doesn't seem like it was ever that super popular thing. It just kind of.
It does kind of seem out of the blue, but I mean, we're not dialed into that. All I remember about Shaman King is it was in all of the Shonen Jumps you could get at your school's book fair.
I mean, I have every Shonen Jump ever printed a few feet from me, so yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's that obscure. Like. There are much more obscure things that have come back after 20 years.
I mean, this is true, but I also feel like there's you either have... Nobody's ever heard of this fucking thing, or this thing was ultra popular.
Well, it doesn't have to be that way.
I know, but it was just... I don't know, it just seemed like such an also-ran at this point, Yeah. I know it was like...
I mean, I side with Kate here.
Yeah, it got pressed when it was like, but the same way that anything that's in Jump gets pressed because they try to push all their shit all the time. Sometimes to no effect, because sometimes they push the wrong shit. Although they've been better about that lately. I feel like they've been better about judging, the temperature of the room a little better lately with which series they try to push.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, this wasn't necessarily a contributing factor, because I haven't heard many good things about the new adaptation. But a lot of the Jump adaptations lately have been just of a much higher quality than they used to be. And that has been making the sales of the manga skyrocket. Now, granted, this is no longer a Jump title, because Shueisha completely washed their hands of the franchise, and it's completely owned by Kodansha now. So, same logic doesn't necessarily apply, but there's no reason that they can't see the same kind of thing happening with other long-running shonen action manga and say that, we want to get in on that. But it doesn't seem to be the highest of quality for this adaptation, so I guess it didn't work.
I'm excited for 10 years from now when we're going to get a Bleach reboot.
They were supposed to get the finale of Bleach, like, this year, but we're halfway through the year and we haven't heard anything.
Wait, it's not over?
No, the manga ended a few years ago, but the final arc was never adapted into the anime. It got canceled first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Bleach was like done for years.
I mean, it has been done for years, but then a few months ago, they were like, hey, we're going to do the last arc of the manga in anime now. And everyone's like, all right.
It's been done for years and should have been done many years before that.
Yes. both the anime and manga overstayed their welcome. So getting this final arc in anime form, I'm not like super excited about it. I'll probably watch it. Hopefully it'll be better paced than previous arcs of the anime, as well as this arc itself in the manga. Because, they were really dragging it out.
Cool. Well, I mean, if there's a demographic for the Shaman King one, I mean, go for it. Why not?
Yeah. Now, the reason that we haven't heard as much about the new Shaman King is because it was picked up by Netflix. And speaking of Netflix, they had a whole Geek Week thingy where they're like, yeah, nerds are cool. Let's have a bunch of presentations about our stuff that nerds like.
That felt pandering as hell.
I was trying to convey that. In
That was
my description.
that was definitely a how do you do, fellow kids
Right. And of these, there are several of particular interest for anime fans. They announced a bunch of new stuff that was just like brand new properties, mostly like actually anime. I don't really have any opinions on any of them because, they don't exist yet. I don't really have that much to go on. The things that I did want to bring up are, not an anime, but based on an anime, they have announced that the live-action Cowboy Bebop is still a thing. It will be released in fall of this year, allegedly. And they had a little teaser thing. We still have no, promo photography, no footage of the show, but they released a little, teaser with some of the main cast in maybe similar to how they'll be looking in the show as the characters. And the main point of it was to announce that Yoko Kanno would be returning to compose the score for the series, which is very good.
Yeah, that could be cool. New extra Cowboy Bebop sounding music. I'm all for that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, like they said in the little teaser thing, it's not Bebop without Yoko. So, it's nice to see that they care at least that much to make it feel like Cowboy Bebop at all.
Yeah, and even if the show's shit, we've got a cool new soundtrack out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can glass half full the hell out of this.
Yeah,
now.
for sure. Yeah, it's as optimistic as I can be about this situation, because we haven't gotten a good one, a live-action adaptation of anime, for Hollywood especially. And even under the best of circumstances, it's hard to imagine it being anything but the Disney live-action remakes, where it's this is fine, but it's just a worse version of the thing that we've already had for 23 years. Why does it exist? Because even if they do their best job with it, it's still a series that benefits a ton from being animation. So if you just do the same thing but have it not be animation, what is the point? So yeah, hopefully I'm proven wrong in one of these adaptations eventually, because the superhero movies, they figured it out. Granted, it's a little different when you have a trillion different comic books that are all vastly different, and they can just pick and choose things from each of them, and there's no defined identity of Batman in particular, where there is for these franchises. But it stands to reason that you could make it work in live action eventually. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and out of all the things, it's okay, Cowboy Bebop. They're human characters. There's nothing too extravagantly crazy happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yes, this makes sense for a thing that if you wanted to adapt to live action, it's okay, yes, this makes sense. Unlike, One Piece or something.
Right. Yeah, and Cowboy Bebop, yeah, all of those things are true. It's been such a huge gateway because it's not very anime as anime goes. And it's because it's very Western. So yeah, all the pieces are in place for this to have potential. But I still feel like the best case scenario I see is that it's just the same thing we've had for 23 years, but they try to make it work in live action, and it doesn't work as well. Like, the Disney live action adaptations are like...
Ugh.
They don't even try. Like, it's a shot-for-shot remake, and you can't shoot live action the same way you shoot animation, especially Disney animation, where it's, like, not nearly as grounded as a lot of, like, Cowboy Bebop-style anime, or, Satoshi Kon-style anime. You can't shoot it in the same way. It just, at best, it's, like, good cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, look at those dollar signs, though.
It's a really funny way to look at it. Just good cosplay.
Right, yeah. Like, oh, these convention goers put on a good masquerade skit. That's neat. We don't need it, though.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Oh, God. The worst part is when you get, like, like, some of the worst, like, superhero stuff that came out, where their costumes don't even look like, like, I've seen cosplayers that look better than this. What the fuck are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've mostly figured it out at this point for, like, the big Marvel movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, again, it's... so far,
usually
it's a
happens in, like... Yes, usually it happens in, like, the TV show versions of that stuff. Like, and then you look at people going, what the fuck happened here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My favorite bad costume, like, trope gaff of all time is the chest plates on male superheroes that make them look buff, but instead it makes them look like they're wearing a cardboard box that someone drew abs on because it doesn't scale with the rest of their body. That's always my favorite. That's always my favorite, just because it's the worst looking, most obvious one of all time, that they made the suit for someone who was bigger to fill it out, and then when they put it on, the guy looks like he's wearing a triple XL when he should be wearing a small. What do you think has the best chance of success? The Cowboy Bebop adaptation or the Borderlands movie?
Oh, God, the Borderlands movie makes no sense. Why? I don't even... The cast attached to that thing? I'm like, what are you people doing with your lives? You're too famous for this bullshit. What are you doing?
This is the first I've heard of a Borderlands movie.
Oh my God, you should... I gotta pull the cast list for this.
Oh yeah, it's real too. It's not just in talks. They've apparently finished a lot of the filming. They have a Claptrap puppet and all sorts of stuff. There's been promotional
Claptrap
images.
will be voiced by Jack Black.
These...
Kate Blanchett is playing Lilith. Ariana
Jack
Greenblatt is
Black
playing
Claptrap.
Tiny Tina.
That had to be the whole reason. Just to say that out loud.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in this. Janina being in it is not surprising at all because she is a huge video game person. She's a nerd.
Jamie Lee Curtis is a One Piece nerd, by the way.
Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is super anime nerd and video game nerd. She's like super nerd too. So, okay, Jamie Lee Curtis
Super
and Janina Gavankar being involved in that is not surprising whatsoever. Kate Blanchett being involved is like, what? Like, I don't, it's just like the people involved in this, like
I mean, Scarlett Johansson and Ghost in the Shell, I feel like it's kind of a similar situation.
I mean, yeah, it was just like, it's Borderlands though.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis I can totally get. Janina, yes, okay. They're both huge geeks. But like, Kate Blanchett? Maybe she's a huge geek, I didn't know.
I mean, how geeky do you have to be into Borderlands?
I mean, I don't know. It's Borderlands. I don't know. It's Chinatown. It's Borderlands.
I hope Jack Black's Claptrap makes a School of Rock joke. That would make the movie worth it for me.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'd be down. School of Rock is one of the greatest movies ever made.
It is a pretty damn good movie.
Yeah, I don't know which one's gonna have the chance at being better. Oh man, it's directed by Eli Roth too. Eek.
And it's written by Craig Mazin, who wrote Chernobyl and is going to write the Last of Us movie, which I'm very excited about.
I gotta rewatch Chernobyl just to like wallow in the horribleness.
I think The Last of Us will work a
yeah.
lot better as a movie
Oh, yeah.
than it does.
Well, yeah,
the game.
because it
Oh, I thought you meant these ones.
Oh well, yeah, that too.
I mean,
that much was
Yeah,
obvious.
definitely
Right,
that part.
yeah, I mean, the game is already like basically a movie, so it'll work great.
I couldn't even get through the first game. It was just too dark.
Man, I love that game.
It was unnecessarily dark at times. I feel like The Last of Us just throws a lot of sad shit at you, and it's like, be sad now. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
I get it.
and it's like, okay, now we go through this room of things that's with kind of annoying stealth combat, and then, yeah, it was just like, oh, it's just, yeah. I
Man,
wanted
it's weird
nothing.
hearing DJ say that thing was too sad.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just,
That was really weird to hear.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like things telling you to be sad is
I don't see
DJ's
that
like
often.
number one thing.
There's a limit to everything though. Like if you're gonna be super sad about something, you've got to back it up with other shit. You can't just incessantly throw sad things at people and expect it to work every time. Like that's why I'm not a big fan of The Last of Us, because it does that thing where it kills off characters before you have a chance to care about the characters. And it's like, okay, well, I don't care that this character died because you spent like 20 minutes introducing me to them and I've done like one thing with them, and it just doesn't matter to me. But it's one of the most popular games ever made, so I'm clearly in the minority.
I mean,
that's true. You are in the minority.
It's one of those things that's like, it's so grimdark that it's like there's no like light at the end of the tunnel kind of situation. It's like it's the reason I couldn't make it through like Eden It's an Endless World manga. It was just too fucking bleak. It's like Berserk I could get behind because there's still like hope and like lightness in Berserk even when it's really, really fucking dark. But like some stuff is just like life sucks then you die. It's like can't deal with this. It's just bleak.
Man, I don't get that at all.
That's basically the synopsis for any Cormac McCarthy book.
Yeah,
Life sucks and then you die horribly.
Yeah,
moving on.
Yeah.
Now that we've got off on a total tangent about horrible bullshit, moving on. Speaking of adaptations.
This is a thing that's an adaptation, yes. Not anything related.
I'm looking at this list going, wait a minute, most of these other news items are still about adaptations.
That's true. Most anime is adaptations. You heard it here first. One such anime, not speaking of live action adaptations, but speaking of Netflix and their Geek Week, the new Gundam movie, Hathaway, will be released on Netflix in 7.5 hours. So by the time you hear this, it will be on there. So that's exciting.
Which officially puts it in the summer season, which means I'm going to talk about it.
Like when we have our episode about the summer season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that'll be an easy one. That's an easy checkbox for me.
We're not recording that in a month. We'll record that episode timely.
Hear about the summer season in fall 2022.
No. Gotta get back on a normal schedule with this podcast.
I'm hyped for the Hathaway movie. I'll probably watch it next Saturday with a bunch of my friends. We're getting together finally. Everyone's vaccinated and stuff. And the first thing was, do you guys want to watch Hathaway? I mean, it looks so good. I mean, honestly, everything that Gundam, everything that Sunrise has been putting out since Unicorn has always looked really nice. That's never really been the problem. Like, Origin looks really nice. Hathaway looks really nice. Unicorn looks really, really nice. It's always been sometimes the absolute horseshit writing.
Right.
But
because what was that Unicorn sequel?
Oh, you talking about Narrative?
Yeah.
Yeah, Narrative was bad. I saw that in theaters. I regret doing that.
I'm glad I missed that one.
Oh, man, the main characters were annoying. I could go on about all the shit that was bad about it. It was trying to be like kind of philosophical and artsy and failed a lot. It looked really nice though.
Nice.
So, and Thunderbolt looked really good too. That was the other one that I missed that's new. But I mean, Hathaway looks legitimately good. I mean, the novels are, from what I understand, pretty well written and stuff. And I mean, that trailer they put out, which felt like not so much a trailer as you were just watching a scene, was dope. I mean, it was Hathaway killing terrorists on an airplane, which was fucking rad. So I'm really hyped for this particular thing. I think its box office has been doing well in Japan too.
Yeah, it got delayed like 1,000 times because of COVID. I'm surprised the box office is doing well because one, they're still in not great shape over there, and two, it got delayed so many times that the Blu-ray came out the same day as its theatrical debut.
Some stuff you just gotta watch in the theater if you can.
Yeah.
I feel like Gundam would be one of those things because it's giant robots fighting in space. So you really gotta see some of that stuff in theaters. I mean, fucking Mugen Train did super well in the middle of the pandemic too.
It's true. That defies all logic. By the way,
yeah.
I was just going to say my only update on that is that it has passed $500 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think the logic of it all has to go out the window that Hathaway could be doing well too, just because Mugen Train did much better at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Is it just the one movie? I keep seeing stuff if it's one movie or if it's a part of like 3 movies that's supposed to be released because of a Gundam anniversary sort of project.
Yeah, it's part of whatever we were at last 40th anniversary 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's supposed to be a trilogy, but I don't think there's been any word on anything past the first movie.
Yeah, do you know if it's like a trilogy about Hathaway, or if it's just they're gonna release 3 loosely connected Gundam stories?
I'm pretty sure it's the Hathaway trilogy, but the first one is just called Hathaway, so I'm not sure. I can probably look it up quickly.
Yeah, I'm glad we got it over here on Netflix. I mean, if I had the opportunity to see it in theaters, I definitely would as well, but
Yeah.
Either that isn't happening or I missed out on the opportunity because I was ignorant. One of the two things.
Yeah, I don't think there's been anything about it. Yeah, it is going to be a 3-part theatrical film adaptation of Hathaway's Flash, and only the first one has any details.
Cool.
Yep. Next piece of news.
What else is in your news thing other than Hathaway?
Yeah.
Oh, next one. Okay. I didn't know if you had said anything else or if it was just Hathaway.
That was that piece.
Yeah.
Next piece.
Go for it. Next one.
So here's a news item. There's going to be a Lord of the Rings anime film. It will be directed by Kenji Kamiyama, who directed Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, Moribito, Eden of the East. I think he also wrote all of those series. And he's been working with Shinji Aramaki lately, directing a lot of CG stuff. But it has been confirmed that this will be a 2D theatrical film. The writer of Return of the King will be a consultant. And Jason DeMarco, who's the creator and head of Toonami and a major role in Adult Swim in general now, will be producing it, which is interesting because I didn't get any indication that it was tied to Toonami or Adult Swim. But yeah, that is some news.
Yeah, I can't honestly say I saw this coming. It's called, the War of the Rohirrim, I believe.
Yep.
I haven't done a lot of research other than that, just because the idea of a Lord of the Rings film in anime took me quite some time to just get my head around. Especially because I was just hoping that it's going to be 2D and not CGI.
Yep.
Especially given the fact that in the sprawling fantasy landscapes, and maybe this has happened in a couple of shows I just haven't watched, I don't think CGI looks as super great when it's not in a city with big buildings and cars and stuff like that, when it's big sprawling landscapes that you can hand draw and look all nice with grass, and then here comes an oddly rendered 3D figure walking through it. or something, it doesn't look quite as nice, or it doesn't blend in as well as when you have like urban landscapes with lots of like geometric shapes rather than like flowing landscapes and things like that. I'm not really aware of any anime that have done like that CGI look with a fantasy thing, because most of the CGI anime I've watched has always either been like in the cities or rural or something, except for the Berserk abomination.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not fantasy, but Kingdom, which is a show that is airing currently, had its first few seasons all CG, and that's like, Warring States China warfare. So, no fantasy, but same kind of setting. There's no technology of the modern era. And yeah, it looked pretty bad, but there's nothing to say that.
I thought you were going the opposite way.
No.
I thought you were going to be like, that was fine.
Yeah,
No.
it's good now that it's 2D, but I think there's definitely truth to that man-made structures and objects, like machines and machine-made things, work a lot better in CG in general. But for the most part, CG anime still looks like garbage no matter what. So I'm just glad it's going to be 2D because we don't have to worry about that. I don't think the studio's been announced. I would default to Production IG because both Kamiyama and DeMarco have stronger ties to that studio than any others, other than the CG specific ones that Kamiyama has been working with lately. So I hope it's IG because they could do a great job with it.
This isn't a part of like Amazon's huge stable of LOTR stuff they were trying to shit out, is it? Or is this something else?
I don't think it's tied to Amazon.
Because I know Amazon has its series. It was
Right.
trying to make a video game for a while, and then they dropped that.
Yeah, nothing about Amazon. It's just Warner Brothers and New Line.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll just keep an eye on it, just to see. I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings, so
Yeah.
I'll watch
It's
it. I feel like this is gonna be one of those deals where it'll be good or shit.
Yeah, it has
So.
to be really good to not be a huge disappointment.
Kinda, yeah.
Who knows how any of this stuff is gonna turn out with all this Lord of the Rings stuff. I feel like it's all one massive mystery at this point.
Yeah. So going back in the opposite direction, back to live action Hollywood adaptations of anime and manga properties. Next up, Made in Abyss. So this one is coming from Kevin McMullen, who I don't remember if he had done anything notable. I don't think I had really heard of the stuff that he'd worked on, but he is slated to adapt Made in Abyss.
This makes no sense.
The production companies are Roy Lee's Vertigo and Masaoka's Mobius Productions, as well as Sony. Vertigo and Mobius Productions have teamed up on projects such as the Netflix Death Note movie, fan and critic acclaimed, and its upcoming sequel, so look out for that. As well as The Promised Neverland, which is in the large growing pile of things I've already forgotten have been announced. And then Masaoka separately is producing another thing on that pile, which I had even more forgotten about, which is Attack on Titan, as well as Akira, which was almost going to be a thing until, Marvel money and Star Wars money was a little more enticing. So, yeah.
Ugh, I don't.
This one feels like it'd be quite the challenge.
Yeah, certainly to be faithful. Don't try to be faithful, guys. Please don't. Don't do these things to real children.
why? Why? Like, of all of the things, why?
Yeah. It probably won't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. Please
I hope
stop.
this isn't development hell forever. Yes,
Yeah.
don't, please. Why? Just like, why? Who looks at that and says, yeah, we could do this live action? It's like, no!
I think they looked at, like, online fan buzz and not a single chapter or episode of the series.
Is this like when they licensed, like, you know, like, they got a package deal? And they're like, yeah, we'll take that. That sounds good.
I mean, it's a beloved, acclaimed property, just not something that's gonna work in live action.
Unless you hire much older Hollywood actors to play children and you expect the audience to believe that.
These children are not the type of children that can be played by adult actors.
Just age everybody up a little bit.
I mean, they kind of
that's
have to.
The only way that this is the only way that they could ever possibly make that show.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the concept of the Abyss works well, I think. And if it's just like a spin-off using the mythos of the Abyss, that could work. Like, you get some Stranger Things, dark type material in there. You could work with it.
I don't know. Well, yeah, like
don't
you said. Yeah, who knows if this will even happen.
Yeah. Like, until it is on my Netflix queue, I still don't believe Cowboy Bebop is going to happen in a few months. And even that was slated to be a live-action movie at least 2008, maybe earlier. So, yeah, we'll see. And most of these things just, never happen. Like the, Akira, it was like, oh, it might really be a thing. And then Taika Waititi, it was like, why don't I go make a bunch of Disney money? And now it's probably not going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great, because this Marvel and Star Wars stuff is great. So I don't need...
Maybe it could be like a passion project down the line, like a vanity thing.
Maybe. We'll see. But, that has changed so many hands. Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell. If these things ever come to be, they're, the most popular things in the Western fandom, and they change hands a million times. So, Made in Abyss, probably not going to happen.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
Next piece of news. So 11 Arts has licensed Gintama the Final, which they are calling Gintama the Very Final. This is a movie that just came out pretty recently in Japan. I think the Blu-ray is still not out yet, so nice quick turnaround with that. Let me tell you a little story about the history of a little series called Gintama in the US.
Oh god, here we go.
So the first 49 episodes were licensed by Sentai and released on bare bones, sub-only DVDs. And then a few years later, they licensed the first compilation film in the series, which is a compilation of episodes they did not already release. And they dubbed that film with a Houston cast, and they released it on Blu-ray, which it had not been released on in Japan, so they just upscaled it for that. And then a few years after that, Crunchyroll announced, because Crunchyroll has had the license to the entire series for streaming since 2009, and so eventually when Crunchyroll was getting more into home video partnerships for releasing Blu-rays, they announced they would be releasing Gintama on home video. Several years later, that developed into them partnering with Funimation, who's their partner at the time, to release what they called Season 3, which is arguably Season 4, which is about another 50-ish episodes 51 episodes specifically, in the like 200 and something episode range of the series. So several hundred episodes later, after what Sentai had released, they dubbed it for that release as well as for streaming at Ocean Group in Canada, both their main studio in Vancouver and their Blue Water studio in Calgary. So completely different cast, of course. Then a few years later, the first season, it might have been just the first 50 episodes again, might have been the entire first actual season, which was like 200 episodes, 201 episodes. But they this was released on Hulu with no evidence that it was tied to like any anime company, and it was dubbed in like Miami by some people. I can't remember if they weren't native English speakers or weren't professional actors or both.
I forgot about this.
But yeah, it just came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden, Gintama was on Hulu for some reason and had this entire dub from these people nobody's ever heard of for some reason. For a season that, had been released in part sub-only by Sentai 10 plus years prior. So that happened, and now 11 Arts has licensed this final movie of the series, and they haven't really announced anything about it, but based on their previous activity and general lack of dubs that they've produced with any of the studios or even, talent pools that have touched this property previously, probably safe to assume that if they dub it, it will get NYAV Post or an LA studio like Bang Zoom to work on it. So it'll be a fourth, completely unrelated, not a single bit of overlap dubcast, if that does happen.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and Gintama is, of course, already an impossible series to dub, but 3, now maybe 4 people have attempted it. So, yeah, super bizarre. I'm super happy that this was happening. I certainly didn't expect it. But just being able to get that movie, the previous movie has still not been licensed or made legally available to anyone. And by the way, the reason that they're calling this the very final is because this movie is called Gintama the Final, and the previous movie was called Gintama the Final Chapter. So you can see how that could be confusing. And for those who don't know, Gintama has had, maybe 100 fake endings. This is the real one. The manga has been over for several years now, and this is adapting the last of it. So they could always, have more spin-offs, but this is presumably the actual ending, which is why they're calling it the very final. But anyway, that previous movie never got released in any way here, so I'm very excited that they are picking this one up. I hope they pursue that one next, but I look forward to seeing it. I hope they do a theatrical run, but as long as I can buy it on Blu-ray, that is good by me.
Well, now maybe you can just say it's a part of the charm of Gintama is having 4 different dubs to worry about.
I mean, that's never charming.
I mean, it's very Gintama, though. It's true. Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Very
it sounds
on
very
brand. Yeah,
Gintama. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
having
on brand.
4 different dubs for everything. Yeah, considering all the stuff like the clips I've seen over the years, because I haven't watched really any of it, but like the clips and the gags that pop up on my internet feeds and stuff, having 4 separate dub attempts seems also like it would be something that you could convince me that they did it on purpose.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and like the home video releases being the first 49 episodes on sub-only DVD from one company, then compilation movie to an arc hundreds of episodes down the line with a dub and a Blu-ray, and then another 51 episodes, several more hundreds of episodes down the line by completely different companies, completely different dub cast, and then this finale, which is another 100 episodes or so down the line, by a completely different company and maybe a completely different dub cast again. Yeah, that collection, which I will own all of at that point, that feels pretty Gintama. It's true.
All right, ready for the next news?
Yeah, last piece of news. So a few days ago, Fruits Basket ended. Another thing called The Final, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that. But at the end of it, it was announced that there would be a spin-off anime, a prequel called The Story of Kyoko and Katsuya, about Toru's parents. And I don't think they've announced the format of it. I think people expect it'll be a film. And I think it's supposed to be released sometime in 2022. So yeah, more Fruits Basket anime coming.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I liked Kyoko a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we hear a lot about Katsuya, but his appearance amounts to like one line in a flashback. So yeah.
Yep.
That'll be cool. That's all the news I got.
Cool. Well, I guess if we're good there, we can move into talking about the spring shows.
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe so.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I mean, par usual, Kestrel, you and DJ watch the most in any given season. So you will have to put the whole team on your backs for a little bit
If you
here.
count the things I dropped, I watched more than Kestrel for the first time ever.
Wow.
I mean, I also dropped 2 shows, but I dropped them very early on.
Great.
Well, we could.
If
you dropped them each at 7 episodes.
I dropped, it's the length of one anime, so that's...
Yeah, so we tied. Let's go.
I was gonna make the same joke. I was gonna say the same thing. If you combine them together, you've matched it.
There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything you guys wanted to start talking about, like in particular that really jumped out at you, DJ? I know you said that there was a show. I don't know which one it was. That in the last 2 episodes, it really shot up your rankings about how it. Yeah, why don't you tell us about that?
There were a couple. There are a couple shows that did that for me, and I'm sure you don't follow me on Twitter because you have zero Twitter presence. But earlier today, I was talking about a sports show from this season that when it started, and this is Farewell, My Dear Cramer for anyone interested. When it started, I didn't care at all. Lead-in films / Leiden films, don't know how to pronounce it. They're really inconsistent with their animation quality, I've found. And this is on the lower end of what they've done. It's just really awkward looking from a character design perspective. But once they start actually playing soccer, it looks good. And once you actually start getting into the sports part of the show, it was super moving. And it was... it's one of those shows where, the team sucks, and the entire show is about them sucking, but, and we're getting into spoiler territory here, they never get better, which is interesting, but it's they never get better, and it's acceptable because I think what they were trying to show is that soccer, it's a really team-based sport. And you can have all of this individual talent on one team, but individual talent means absolutely nothing if the team is not good. So it was interesting seeing how just constantly losing was affecting these great players. And it was I just kept being oh, this is the one where they turn things around, and it never happened. And I really like that it never happened, because it gives hope for the future, I guess, or something like that. But I just went from not caring at all to fucking being stoked whenever it was time to watch it, and I'm just I don't know, man. I've never seen and I don't watch a lot of sports anime, but I haven't seen a sports show that has done that before.
It's it's light in films, by the way, just to get that in there.
Leiden films, okay. Thank you.
I guess it just depends on. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know in what way they're shitty, and how that's portrayed. But there's a couple shows that have done that before.
Yeah,
because there's like Taisho Girls Baseball, but that's a comedy, but they're shitty, and they're just a lot of them are just trying to learn how to play baseball, and their whole goal at the end of the season was just to like beat the intramural boys team or just like score a run on the intramural boys team or something like that.
This was like these girls were like trying to make a run for it. They're like, all right, we're gonna do this. Like, we are the team. We've got this talent. We've got this former pro coach who's like the most popular female soccer player in Japan. And it's all of the signs of things turning around. And they scored like one goal through like 13 episodes. And it was just weird like that happened. Because it really like makes you think that shit's gonna get better. And I'm glad it didn't. Because it's one of those shows where like you have the opposing team and it's like, oh, I'm gonna root against them, but like once the opposing team starts doing shit, it like goes into the opposing team's story and like you realize that they're actual characters too, and you can't root against them anymore because they've got their own stuff. So it was just a really well-rounded soccer show with a ton of heart, and it was just held back by some of the visual aspects of it.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting theme to go with on a sports show, because I'm thinking of all the sports anime that I've watched or I've heard of, and I really can't think of any that the team is bad but is seriously trying, and not from they're bad in a comedic sense, or they're bad compared to competition, because you could say stuff like, technically in Run with the Wind, they were bad compared to their competition in a lot of ways, but the sport of running is not really competitive in the shape of you're immediately trying to beat the person running next to you.
Yeah,
it's definitely really not that way, and it wasn't portrayed in that way, so you can't really say that much. But yeah, I can't really think of one. Most of the sports shows that are out there, it's like the team is good, and it's about them going to their version of nationals, or the team is bad but it's comedic. So
not this time. Yeah, it was they were genuinely just trying to do really well, and they didn't. And it ends with like the opposing team being like, yo, your fucking good players should go to a different school. And they're just like, we're gonna stay here and we're gonna build up this team because we want there to be more good teams in girls soccer because it's dominated by just like a few people. And that's like what they're trying to change, I guess. But they did not make any strides in actually changing it throughout the course of the series. So
fucking idiots.
I don't think there will be more of it. I know that there was a movie prior to the series coming out. And from what I understand, it's a lot better animated too. So I'll probably check that out. It's just the backgrounds of one of the girls in the team who was on a male team previously because there weren't enough girls playing soccer at her school to play with girls. So if there's more of this, I will absolutely watch it. It's really surprising that I went from not caring at all to caring as much as I do.
Yeah, and they have a point in what you mentioned earlier is also true. Like, I think the only sport where you could have one person, especially a team-based sport, that one person can make that big of a difference is probably basketball. And that's only because in basketball you have 5 people on the court.
Yeah.
At all times. So if you substitute one of the bad people with one like all-star caliber player, you're definitely going to be better. Like by leaps and bounds. I mean, look at, where LeBron James has played in his career. It's been, him and then a bunch of me's and you's. Mm-hmm. And he's won championships with those teams. But yeah, sports like baseball and football to a certain extent outside of the quarterback or whatever. Yeah, it's way more about the synergy of the team and their collective working together and skill than just one person being really good, because one person can only do so much.
Yeah, that's like, and even like the people that were really good on the team, it's like they were never good enough because there was always someone equally good on the other side. It's just like there was no one that really, and like you were just saying, soccer is not really a sport where you can do that, but there was no one that, even if you could, I guess, would be capable of something like that, just because it's, I don't know, I guess they were just showing that like the world, the athletic world is a lot bigger than what is directly in front of you and what you directly see, and there will always be someone who is better. So I liked it. It was a really interesting series.
Is there any significance to the word Cramer here? Is that like the
there's
name
probably
of the character?
like some soccer significance, but I know next to nothing about soccer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out because when you first said Cramer, of course I thought of Seinfeld. But
Yeah, Cramer with a C.
Boy, was I disappointed.
Cramer.
Farewell, my dear Cramer. It's just Cramer moving out.
Yes.
It's just
I'd watch that. I would watch the shit out of that show.
All right. Detmar Cramer is commonly considered to be the father of modern football, soccer, in Japan.
Yeah, I figured it was something like that.
Gotcha. So there is some significance. It wasn't just some word they picked.
Just a word.
All right. Cool. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That does definitely sound like an interesting take on a typical sports anime, which is always welcome in a subgenre that has its fair, they all have tropes, but sports kind of almost always follow a very linear path in the progression of the story because, nationals, baby. But,
right.
Cool. So, Kestrel, was there anything in particular that you were jazzed about? I know you have that Fruits Basket as that A+.
I am rather jazzed about that series, yes. We're going to talk about that one?
Well, then talk about it.
All right.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and focus on everyone's top rank ones if I have to pick for people because it seems more often than not, I always pick the middling ones. And then there's always at least an A or an A+ on someone's list that we just completely skip in these episodes.
Right.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today. Not today.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about Fruits Basket since it started back up in 2019 for this, fresh reboot like we were talking about before with Shaman King and all those other series that get the full, faithful manga adaptations down the line. And I'd read all of the manga before that reboot started, and I loved it, and it was, on my list of favorite manga since then. So the new adaptation started, and I was excited about it. The writer is one of my favorite anime writers. He's done the anime for Haikyuu and Usagi Drop and Erased and a bunch of others. And the composer has been climbing up the ranks of my favorite composers even more recently because he had done the music for Early in April, and he has now done all of the music for Fruits Basket as well as Horimiya. So yeah, a lot of good stuff from those people involved. At the beginning of the adaptation, I wasn't that enthusiastic about it, but I knew that it just got better as it went on because that's how the manga goes. And yeah, I think I partially forgot about how much exponentially better it gets as it goes on and approaches the ending. And also I think just the quality of the adaptation and just how comfortable everyone on the staff felt with the series and these characters and everything kind of went hand in hand with the quality of the source material. And so that just propelled it even further as it went along. So first season, I was like, yeah, that was a good show. Second season, much higher. I put it on my, top of the year last year. And this one just blows it all out of the water. It was only 13 episodes. I was a little concerned about it being a little bit rushed. And I think they did cut out a little bit of backstory from like Toru's parents, but they're doing a whole anime spin-off about them, so I think that will definitely make up for that. And yeah, I thought the pacing, even directly comparing it to the manga and having that as an expectation, was pretty perfect throughout. And yeah, I mean, it's a series that is powerful because of its emotional charge and the emotional maturity and depth of its characters, and you just get more and more of that as the series goes on. And this final season is really just like digging into the deepest depths of all of these characters and, you know, finally figuring out how to resolve as many of their issues as possible. And some of them don't work out that easily, but it's a very satisfying conclusion all around. I think all of the character writing and character dynamics are at least as good as they were in the manga. And yeah, it's a series that it's hard for me to even think about it as being like the quintessential 90s shoujo romance manga, because it just feels so many worlds removed from everything else that would fit into that category. It's just so unique, and you know, it has the tropes and it has inspired a lot as it's gone on, I'm sure, but yeah, just the nuance of its writing, especially in the later parts, just really blow my mind. And the characters have I've definitely got a strong attachment to them.
Does it have
Yuki's
the
the
tropes,
greatest
or did it
character in
create
shoujo.
the tropes? Oh, sorry. DJ, yours
didn't
was
hear
more.
what-
Your question was more prescient. Mine was just something
Okay.
random. So you go.
Yeah, no, I'm sure people probably heard me because my voice is loud, but I was saying that Yuki in Fruits Basket is probably the best character in the shoujo genre,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't know that I can come up with anyone to refute that. I think that's...
Yeah,
I can't think of anyone
there's
better.
just so much to him, and like all the way up through the end, I loved every single direction his story went in, and I feel like it's going to be inevitable to not mention spoilers during this discussion. So if you're watching Fruits Basket or plan on watching Fruits Basket, wish you should. It's a great show. Skip ahead.
Try not to spoil too much, because like we never put in
yeah.
like how much to skip ahead or anything. And like, I want Cain to watch Fruits Basket. I don't know if they ever will, but
I have no interest in watching this.
but I don't want to spoil it for even the people on the podcast. And
I can I'll figure out a way.
Worry
to
about the
around,
listeners. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I hate having
I,
to skip forward in podcasts, so you know.
During the last season, it starts to become apparent that the way Yuki feels about the protagonist of Fruits Basket is a little different from how we're led to think that it is supposed to be portrayed, I guess. It's a weird sentence, but basically he doesn't feel the same way about her as we think that he feels, and as soon as that like comes to light, it adds so much to him, and it really just changes the trajectory of his path completely, and everything from that point on, and I guess all the stuff before it too, because it was a lot of Yuki backstory, but the romance in particular for him, I feel it was super realistic. I love the character that I'm just trying to avoid spoilers again. I love his pairing, I guess. I don't know. But he's just so great, and everybody else in the show, all of the side characters, they had so much to them, and everything is tied up perfectly in the end. There's just one part that I really didn't like, that I guess I don't have to talk too much about, but it felt like it was, from my perspective, because I know I interpret Toru in particular a lot differently than Kestrel does, I feel like there was one thing that really undermined her for me, and it just... having the most important part of the show get hit with the one thing that I didn't want it to get hit with, it was a big blow. And I'm sure that as time goes by, I will come to appreciate it more than I currently do. But it really just left a sour taste in my mouth with that one part, and it sucks that I dropped it so much because of that one thing, but I felt like I had to, because it just really disappointed me. But only that one thing, like I was saying. Everything else in the show is perfect, and it's I'd probably call it my second favorite shoujo series overall now.
What was your first?
Kimi ni Toroke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is what would be Cain's least favorite show in the world. It's just 30 plus episodes of misunderstandings.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of good experience with romance animes because a lot of them have misunderstandings as a central piece of their plot.
Yeah.
And that's just not how my
Kimi
personality goes.
Kimi
so
ni Toroke
I avoid those in real life as much as possible by just being blunt.
Yeah, it's like the misunderstanding anime, but it's somehow also the most suspenseful anime I've ever watched.
Yeah. I asked you this once, Cain, and I don't think I ever got a response, but does romantic storytelling and emotional storytelling in general ever work for you? Because I feel like I have never seen a situation where it has.
It can. I'm not really big in general into a lot of romance stuff, but emotional stuff, yeah. One of my favorite movies of the past 2 or 3 years was The Farewell, which is just about a family dealing with having to say goodbye to their dying grandma for an hour and 45 minutes. So
that's what Tokyo Monogatari is about. One of my favorite movies.
So yeah, I guess it's just for anime in particular, it doesn't work for me, and I think it's also because there's just other pieces at play that are more like my problem than anime's problem. I don't take it as seriously because these are high school kids, and I'm like, just wait until you get to your fucking 30. This isn't gonna mean anything to you, man, because you're gonna have to worry about paying your rent. And I'm just I can't get myself into it because I know that in high school everything is melodrama all of the time. So it's hard for me to take it seriously, and I fully understand that that's a me problem, not an anime problem. So if it's a romantic subplot, I'm a little bit better about it. But when the whole aspect of a show is the trials and tribulations of romance, it just doesn't really work for me all that much. So a show Nozaki-kun, which romance is sort of a subplot in this comedy, I like the romantic parts in it, even if it ends in a cliffhanger based off of that. But yeah, I guess I just have a problem in general dealing with animated romance. I don't really know why I can't get over the hurdle on that in particular.
If the characters were older, if it was a josei or something, would you be more
probably
into it?
That would probably work for me a little bit more. Yeah, I think so. I think if it was, I guess is josei the quote unquote adult version of shoujo?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what that translates to?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I bet that would have a greater chance of working for me than a shoujo with school age kids. And I think it also branches from I didn't really have a lot of romantic stuff going on when I was in high school, so it's just kind of that isn't how I experienced high school at all. So I can't really relate to the characters because I didn't have that experience in any way, shape, or form. So it doesn't connect.
I think my entire high school life essentially was focused on romance.
Oh, jeez, this explains so much.
I am deeply afflicted and haunted by the passage of time and need to live vicariously through the lives of people in these shows.
I'm over here with
totally makes sense.
I'm over here with
there you go.
Cain going, I was not interested in people at all when I was in school. This is totally
I had
alien.
no romance in high school. DJ, were you? Are you popular?
All I thought about.
Is DJ the popular kid?
I wasn't popular.
You sat at the cool table, though.
Yeah. Well, I was on TV in the morning, so it's like everybody knew me, and I had friends in like every group, and it's.
Oh, you did the announcements and
always,
shit?
He was the channel. He was
I
the
did
channel
the
one
announcements.
kid.
Yeah, I was on TV every morning. But
Fuck
like
yeah.
all of that was like high school. Like I broke up with my girlfriend of like several years. We dated like all through middle school, basically like freshman year of high school, and I didn't get over her until like 5 years later. And so it really fucked me up. And so my entire life like was centered around that for a while.
Well, that's a little more understanding in a sense. We're just getting way off track here, but
Oh no! Now I want to hear about
when you
Little J's anime middle school life here.
well, that tracks for me when I think about it from a logical standpoint, because much like your friendships in high school, for the most part, they're born out of proximity. So it's much harder to get over someone that you were in a relationship with in middle school or high school because you're basically forced to see them every day. When you're an adult, it can be a little bit easier sometimes, because when you break up with someone, you can essentially cut that person out of your life entirely, unless it's been like years and years and years that you were together and your families are spending Christmas together and all sorts of shit. But when you're in like grade school phase, it's like you're kind of forced to deal with it on a daily basis. You cannot ignore it. You can't just stop going to classes.
That's like the most impressionable part of your life too. Like that's when you're like, trying to figure out who you are as a person. And if you're like dealing with just extended misery throughout that period, it gets to you, and it really changes who you are. And so all of these, because romance and drama, those are probably my two favorite things in anime. All of those things are sort of like a time machine for me, where I can go back and sort of look at not what could have been, but like what was, and it can be really moving at times from my perspective, since that was such a big part of my life.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I experienced the same thing with like sports anime when I watched them, like a Prince of Tennis or Kuroko's Basketball, because that was my life more. I did a lot of sports and team stuff, so like team bonding and personal growth in there. That's how I do it. So you're living, kind of revisiting your past through romance is kind of like me doing that with sports shows, because that was my life. For better or for worse.
I guess I generally don't feel like I have the same kind of real world attachment to the stuff I'm interested in, because I like high school romances a lot, and I didn't have any high school romances, and I like sports anime a lot, and I've never given a shit about sports. But it is true that any anime about fucking weebs, I just adore. So yeah. I guess it all works.
Like we like being able to relate to things.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
The human condition. Who knew?
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, folks. We've uncovered the mystery.
I think this
we figured out anime.
I think this conversation helps explain in a little bit more detail, actually. So I appreciate you asking, Kestrel, why I don't like movies like Weathering with You and Your Name.
That was a really good question.
I think that helps explain it more. I cannot relate to that time of life where you feel like such a deep connection to someone when you're like 16 or 17, that Weathering with You ends with, all the crazy shit that happens in that just so he can get back to this girl that he's known for like 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't really work with me, so I can't connect to the characters of the story. So I think that helps explain that a little bit more than when I just go off on you in the Discord about how shitty it is.
Yeah, and again, I didn't have that experience in my life either, and we relate to these things very differently, so, it's more than just that, but I think it is fair to say that plays a big role. Part of it is just, everyone has their own tastes in fiction, but a person like you, with all other things the same, had you had, a really strong teenage romance experience, you might feel a little bit differently about these movies and TV series.
Sure. Yeah. That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But I know that Emily actually, I think she had read, if not watched, the original Fruits Basket and liked it. I don't know, is this new one just so much better that even if you had watched the old one and enjoyed it, it'll just be like, you'll like it even more now? Or does it almost feel like a different beast?
Fruits Basket Brotherhood.
It's exactly Fruits Basket Brotherhood. I literally
FBB.
explained it as Fruits Basket Brotherhood to my mom 3 days ago. Yeah, it's the same deal. So I think, for the original Full Metal Alchemist anime adaptation still has its fans who like it more than Brotherhood. Fruits Basket, this new one, has only been out for a few years and just ended a few days ago. So I don't know that there's the stats to compare quite as 1-to-1, but I feel like nobody is ever going to prefer the original. Certainly not the mangaka. But yeah, I think this one...
Oh, she hated it, didn't she?
Yeah, the mangaka hated it, the original adaptation. And it definitely, is very incomplete, obviously. I think it only covers up to what the first season of the reboot has covered. And there are some assumptions it makes that it gets wrong. I'm saying all this, disclaimer, I haven't actually seen the original show, so mostly talking out of my ass here. But from what I understand, the aesthetic is a major departure and is a lot less detailed than the artwork of the manga and the new adaptation. There are a lot more like standard shoujo tropes and visual gags that you don't really get in the manga or the new adaptation, which is refreshing to not get them. Like I said, you get some, classic shoujo tropes, but they play with them a little bit, and they definitely, fade away as time goes on, like Full Metal Alchemist. Like, you get your kind of gag tropes in the early parts, but not so much later. So yeah, I don't imagine that there's anyone who should be discouraged from watching the new adaptation because they've seen the original. Yeah, absolutely. A few other things I want to touch on from some of the things that Cain and DJ had said. Yeah, so there's a lot of well, I guess I'll talk about that moment that DJ was talking about with it was actually in the previous season where Yuki tells his new friend in the student council how he really feels about the main character, and it's not what we expect. And when Caitlin watched that with me, she had the reaction that DJ had to the thing that happens in the final season that made it drop like 10 spots. She was very upset because, and like...
I was at first too. Right. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I wanted them to be a thing.
Yeah.
But after he like sits there and explains it, I'm like, yeah, why does that make so much sense? And it over time it really grew on me.
I think she was very upset for those first few episodes, and even after he explained it and everything. But after she was caught up, and we had to wait a week in between each episode, and we were watching through this final season and really getting into all of the character relationships between the three main characters and the other love interest that ends up with the one who doesn't go in the direction that he had the potential to. And once all that stuff gets more solidified, she was all behind it. And I get it because we love Yuki so much, and he's such a likable character and given so much depth throughout the entire series. Like, it
I
seems...
just wanted him to be happy.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the... It's a big theme throughout the series of, you know, these characters struggling with issues that, yeah, to Cain's point, there's some high school melodrama where everything feels like it's the end of the world when you're in high school. But, you know, there are some fantastical circumstances at play that make it so that the kids do have bigger issues to deal with. There are a lot of adults in the cast that get serious development. Romance is a major part of the story, but I would say it is largely not the focus. It's mostly just general character study and, you know, the drama of human beings struggling through various insecurities and trying to come to terms with that, and you know, how that develops in a very natural and realistic sense. So yeah, romance is a part of that, as it is, you know, a part of the human condition, but I don't think it's the main or even the most important part. But yeah, all of this to say, you know, having such a strong attachment to Yuki, you can get behind kind of like the shipping wars where people are really attached to a certain pairing, because it feels like up to that point they are given the spotlight more often than not, and their relationship is developing in a very strong way, just as it turns out, not in necessarily that way, which is, you know, at the end of the day kind of refreshing, because it doesn't need to be a romance between the two main characters.
That was another, the whole thing with it. It doesn't have to be a romance. That was like, I guess, one of the parts that got to me in the end, because I felt like the romance that does exist didn't have a plausible reason to exist. And yes, it's love, and love isn't always rational, but it didn't make sense how things ended up the way they did after certain revelations are made within such a short period of time. That is the least spoilery way I can say it. Yeah. I felt like this show, the fact that it is a shoujo series, held it back in a way. And it's because I was saying it the other day, but it spends so much of its time being like, this isn't normal shoujo. We're doing stuff that no one else would do. And I loved it, only to, at the very end, remind me that, oh, yeah, romance, like, that's the point. And so I know I look at that a lot differently than you do. And I hope that I can change the way I look at it in time. But right now, that's just how it feels for me. And that's why it's lower in my book than it was at the start of the season, when I think I said this is probably going to be my favorite season overall. Yeah. And I'd probably put it, like, quality-wise, it was great. It was just that one thing that really held it back.
Yeah. And I guess the fact that I see Toru so differently, and I appreciate how much, in my view, it's not like the kind of perfect scenario with the perfect character as it's made out to be. And I view it as quite the opposite, where it's Toru is a really damaged character, and she's so good at deflecting that, and making herself out to be this perfect saintly martyr, that she's kind of the only character who doesn't get to really sort through her insecurities and her neuroses, and that's really sad, but it's really powerful.
Yeah, I
when I
love
look
that
at that
interpretation of her. Like, I've always known that she's been damaged in a way. Like, she's gone through some shit, but I always felt like, oh, that's just who she is, and like all of that trauma has not had as much of an impact on her as it should have had. Where you were looking at it the exact opposite way, where it's like that turned her into what she is. I like that a lot, and I want to watch the show again with that mindset.
I think it's probably because I have like a close friend who it seems like, you know, the most selfless person, and, you know, from knowing him very closely for a very long time, I know that that has been kind of a coping mechanism for the you know, the dark places that he goes to in his mind, where he feels like he has to be a martyr and put other people on his pedestal and you know, always be the perfect friend to them, at the expense of himself. So I feel like that's the reason why I view her that way and feel like that connection resonates for me, just as my connection with Yuki resonates for a lot of the reasons that, you know, he, like many characters in the show, always sees how other people are superior to him and can never see the things that are good about himself that anyone else sees. And yeah, it's a major theme throughout the show. It's touched on by Toru early on as, like, you know, you have a plum in you as a rice ball or whatever metaphor, that you can't see that everyone else sees. And you know, she goes over this for both Yuki and Kyo, who are the two central characters that struggle with it, especially feeling inferior toward each other, and just not being able to realize what the other one sees, and, you know, how they respect each other and wish that they could be the same. But Toru, I think there's a fair case to say that she definitely does not see herself in the same light that everyone else does, and it's really not addressed as much with her.
Yeah, they never really spend a lot of time really diving into her psyche, where they do it with Yuki for like half of the show.
Exactly, yeah. And like Toru is always there because, yeah, it definitely makes sense with the way that Yuki views her. She's always there to comfort him and, you know, bring out the best in him and make him feel like he is worthy. And that's great for him and for Kyo and everyone else. But she doesn't really let it happen to herself.
I thought of one romance show of recent that I enjoyed to a certain point, and that was Sing Yesterday for me.
No!
Even the ending?
No, I said to a certain point.
To a certain point.
Yeah, but you reminded me.
Right.
No, I
thinking
enjoyed
about
that
it.
in the development of those relationships and how people were, you know, they had their own world and own problems, as well as the problems of trying to figure out if they want a relationship with someone, if they want to pursue her, if it's worth it, or if they should or should not, like that, you know, that kind of stuff. All that, yeah, up until the ending, which ruined everything. So that's one of recent, and I guess that would, I don't know if you'd call that a josei or whatever, but at least the people involved for the most part were farther on in their lives, and had problems and things that were a little bit more relatable, except for the one who was like a high school dropout or whatever.
Except for the high school manic pixie dream girl who ends up ruining the whole show.
Yep. Man, she
okay,
sucks.
hold on. She didn't ruin the show.
Well, the show ruined itself
ruined the
around
show.
her.
She got caught up in the crossfire.
Yeah.
It's the protagonist who in the end is like, yeah, you know what? Backup plan.
Right, yeah. That was the problem.
That.
It's true, but I think her presence in the show was what allowed it to go down a bad path.
I mean, it was her presence
if she wasn't there, he wouldn't have had a backup plan.
I just mean...
Yeah, it was her presence, but it was the protagonist guys just like, you know what? I'm just gonna
So my last girlfriend broke up with me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
I'm just gonna park the bus right here and I'm gonna just...
Oh my god, fuck that show.
Yeah, I just mean that her character overall kind of detracts from all of the things that Cain was talking about throughout that series about.
I feel like that was the whole purpose of her character, though, like to show the contrast between like a functioning adult and a confused schoolgirl.
But
Like I feel like having that contrast made the path that it looked like the protagonist was going to make a lot better until the very end, where it's apparently the exact opposite.
she just still never felt real to me. She felt like
Yeah.
this idealized, which, I mean, yeah.
She was an idealized manic pixie dream girl. That's just what she was. And characters like that exist to sort of take the protagonists of stories on like just super cool journeys of love and cuteness and stuff, but like it never works out that way because they always run away in the end.
Or
Yeah,
they become psychos.
right.
Yeah, it's like the manic pixie dream girl is always manic pixie dream girl for like 95%, and then it's just like, yeah, you know what? Not gonna work because I'm manic and I'm flighty, and it's over. But I liked her a lot. Like at the end of the show, she was the only one I still liked because the other two just fucking ruined everything.
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't like any character by the end. Maybe her childhood friend.
Well, except
Kid.
his friend. I was gonna say except for the protagonist's friend who worked at the convenience store.
Yeah, he was fine too.
He was the bro.
He was
Yeah.
he was cool. He was cool. He allowed the guy to just skip out on work or whatever. Didn't seem to care all that much.
Yeah, he was the best coworker ever.
He really was, because he was just like, "Come on in, your 27-minute cigarette break is over."
He also has one of my favorite lines in anime in saying that cute girls are allowed to do whatever they want. That is my policy.
That's true, yeah. And perhaps this world's only unassailable truth.
Yeah, anyway, that series was seinen. Yeah, still for adults in theory, just not women. So that's the only
Yeah.
difference.
Okay, well that's 2 shows.
Oh my god. Time
Like we do.
time check, hour 30 minutes.
Yeah, hour 30. So,
Excellent.
Cain, what are you watching? If anything.
I actually wanted to. I was gonna go next, and I wanted to talk about the ending of Nomad. I
it.
wanted to get Kestrel's opinion on it, because I'm like, first off, I really enjoyed the show. Like, I really liked it. I think the opening theme was awesome, just because of that, like, you know, like Mexican, like flamenco-esque guitar juxtaposed with like pop art imaging. Was cool as shit. And of course, you know, the characters and the drama and everything is cool. But the ending left me feeling kind of weird, in that that's the ending I wanted, but I felt like the way it got there wasn't satisfactory enough to me. I'm trying to think of a way to put it. I guess the ending fight didn't really have the chutzpah that I wanted it to before it got to the ending, as opposed to the first season, which was when Joe and Yuri fought, and it was like cool as hell, and there was a lot of shit going on. This one felt more like the fight was like more of a metaphor than anything. It wasn't even a fight, so they didn't spend as much time on the fight as the people surrounding the fight solving their own problems and the fight sort of happening in the background.
Right.
And I guess that makes sense, because this fight had 0 stakes whatsoever. In a way. Like, it was an exhibition, if I recall.
Yep. Right.
So there wasn't like a tournament championship or a million yen or apparently maybe some renovations for that one kid's fucking restaurant that he somehow owns. So I just wanted to get what your opinion on like the how it ended, because I was surprised that everybody lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because typically, you know, it was gearing up for me. I was like, oh, someone's definitely dying here.
Right.
Well, as soon as any character in any like show like this says, don't worry, I'll just do this last fight and then I'll live with you forever, I'm like, nope, dead.
Yep. setting those flags.
Exactly, but that's not what happened, which I guess I wanted, because I was happy with that part.
Right.
But then I didn't think it was going to be... I thought it was going to be not Joe. I actually thought it was going to be Joe's opponent that would die because of the evils of capitalism.
I mean, we had major death in the first arc of the season.
Which was fucking bullshit. As in, I understand it, and I get why it happened, but man, I also thought about that and talking to my brother a couple times. I was like, there's a part of me that wishes this whole season was just Joe and Chief.
Right, yeah. It definitely has
because
two
Chief
very
was
different
cool
halves.
as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chief was cool, and his story was really cool, and like where he lived and the reason he was fighting, and how he also lived like a nomadic lifestyle in the sense in that like amusement park turned into a small like town civilization. I was like, this I want to know more about. I want to see how this keeps going. But then the way that Chief just kind of ended in his own story was a little disappointing because he was cool.
Yeah.
He was a big man.
Yeah, the season was definitely kind of split down the middle between the two arcs, and they had very different feels. And yeah, I was kind of surprised by how little of it was the first arc, because it felt like that did have a lot more potential.
It felt like the majority of Joe's problems were in there, or
Definitely.
Junk Dog, or Nomad, however you want to call him.
Yeah.
It felt like the majority of his personal problems were contained within that first arc.
Yep, definitely.
And then after that, it's not necessarily Joe's insular problems, but Joe's problems with returning to a place that he's not really welcome in.
Yep. Yeah, and I think I was definitely surprised by kind of how quickly Joe turned around, because of, how far down he was in the beginning of the series, and yeah, that first arc resolved it a little bit more quickly than I expected, and then he kind of didn't seem broken anymore, and
at least emotionally, physically he was.
Yeah, but
because that was his whole, he could die any moment due to his struggles with painkiller addiction and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you there.
But yeah, then what that turned into with him returning home and dealing with the kids, yeah, that I think that had its own benefits, and I think as the arc went on, Mac's arc was more interesting and definitely got more focus on like real character drama. So I think it had that going for it. All of the main boxers, Joe, Mac, what's his name? Blue? Something like that.
Yeah, Yuri's protege that Mac fucking annihilates.
Right. I think all of them had, you could definitely empathize with them as time went on. There's a lot of good character moments. So yeah, I was surprised that it wasn't as focused on Joe's psyche for the later part of it, but I think the rest of it all worked pretty well. He was just kind of like an instrument to explore the rest of their characters.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Mac's story. I mean, I feel like it's super hard to like not feel a lot of sympathy for him, especially as the story goes and reveals to you exactly how he ended up in that situation.
Yeah.
Both within his control and out of his control. When my brother and I were watching it, we were holding mini bets on how the story would come out, and I was glad to say that I was right every time. But also unfortunately, because like I knew the geek dude was actually a piece of shit, like the whole time. I was like, there's no way this dude is just gonna be like, oh, I developed this brain chip so that people could walk again or whatever. I was like, no, that's not how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
This dude is actually gonna be a psychopath. And yeah, that's how it turned out. Because Caleb thought that he was going to be the naive scientist taken advantage of by the evil corporation, which is not an unfair estimate.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like entirely unrealistic. But just looking at him, I was thinking, nah, dude, this dude is gonna show his whole ass to you in a moment. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I think the best part to me about Mac's storyline is that he is a protagonist in that you want to cheer for him because he's a good dude, but like he's also an antagonist because you know that because of Mac time, he could murder someone at any moment.
Yeah.
And it could be another character that you like, so that immediately makes you want to see him be defeated. At the same time, even though he's also someone you want to cheer for. So like when I was watching any fight that he was in, it was kind of like I want the other guy to win just as much as Mac because they're both kind of neat characters, but I want Mac to lose more because there's a chance that he could cripple someone for life, if not kill them.
Yeah.
And it's entirely out of his control for the most part. I do know the most satisfactory part of the entire show was when Joe beat the shit out of Sachio because I hated that punk. God, I hated Sachio so much.
He was hard to like for most of the season, yeah.
He was super hard to like, and then when he was like, "I'll fight you, Joe," I was just thinking, you don't want any of this. You don't want any of this at all because Joe's like twice your height. And twice your length, he'll beat the snot out of you, and that's basically what happened. But part of me is like, why does he have to be such a jerk? And then the other part of me, I was like, well, why did Joe even listen to him? Like during the funeral scene, when everybody believes that Joe left on his own volition, he kind of did, kind of didn't, and it was like, well, why did you listen to a 9-year-old? Like, what's up with that? But then when they came back and Sachio was just an asshole the whole time, I was glad to see Joe kick the shit out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's realistic enough that these kids are acting like kids, and kids can be shitty, and when they've endured the shit that they have and felt this sense of abandonment from the person that they viewed as family and the only surviving older role model, when you feel that sense of betrayal from a impressionable young age, you can definitely understand how they went in that trajectory, especially with no positive influences to correct the course until this season. Yeah,
and I think and it's something that you can't expect kids to understand, and I know that I'm irrational in that, and I'm always irrational about kids in anime not having adult emotional understanding. But, the way that Sachio or any of the other characters express grief is different from the way that Joe expresses grief. And it was seen when he was having that first exhibition fight with Yuri, he knew he was going to lose, and he knew that it wasn't really going to do anything, but that was all that Joe knew how to do, and that was his connection with Pop. Was boxing. It wasn't sitting by his hospital bed and just watching him die. So Joe has to keep moving forward even if he knows that it's in vain. Yeah. And the kids, just overall really didn't understand that, and I can't expect them to. But it was hard to watch them, well, especially Sachio. The other kids came around a little bit quicker and easier and kind of gave Joe a chance to express his apology or try to make things right, and Sachio was just really against it for his own reasons. But it was hard for me to just be like, why can't you guys understand that Joe did this because he couldn't sit by Pops' hospital bed and watch him die, because that's just not how their relationship worked. It wasn't like he was going into that last exhibition fight without Pops' permission or without his cooperation. Joe talked to him about it, and Pops, agreed in the way that he would. So it wasn't like Joe was ignoring him. I think it was just his way of dealing with the fact that, Pops is going to be gone. And trying to kind of deal with it, almost run away from it for a little bit, and then when he finally lost, it was like, okay, now it's time to sit down, buckle up, and deal with it as reality rather than something you can at least attempt to run away from. So, yeah, it was a really, really good show. I enjoyed it all the way up until just the ending that, yeah, I just still feel conflicted about because I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted what happened, but not in the way that it did happen, I suppose. So, yeah, it was a very good like sequel follow-up. I wish Joe would have kept the beard the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of feeling that too.
Yeah, he looked good in the beard.
I like the
clean
design,
shaven. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I mean we've got enough clean shaven Joe.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get more bearded Joe when bearded Joe is on top of his game and not wallowing in the pits of depression and painkiller addiction.
Yeah.
Let's mix it up a little bit. Yeah, it was good, and I thought for the most part the fights were also well animated and dynamic in their action, as well. So, you know, I got a lot of satisfaction out of watching those as well, even if sometimes the fights felt like sort of a afterthought or set piece for the outside drama rather than the focus of what this is going on in the show itself. They still animated them well, like with the footwork and, you know, impacts of punches and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely the role that the fights played for the most part, especially in this season. And I think that's generally a good thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's it's kind of like ping pong. Like the game of ping pong is just kind of like a set piece or a metaphor for the character drama. So yeah, I think that works pretty well.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with them acting as that way. Just maybe a little bit in the last one because it was kind of like Joe the legend versus the people's hero and also potential psychotic murderer Mac.
Yeah, he's
and then for the most part in the fights you in that fight you didn't see a lot of it going on, and it happened so quickly as well.
Yeah, I think the final fight as a climax was a little underwhelming, a little anticlimactic. I know a lot of people were annoyed by the very end of the first season as well, because it kind of cuts out the actual climax of the climax.
True. Yeah.
So I guess that's just the thing this show does.
Yeah, the first season they cut away from the actual climax of the fight, and then the second season it's anticlimactic in its entire. The way it goes through it. So it's just a thing the show does, I guess. Yeah, I'm glad to see that you enjoyed it, because, yeah, so did we. We liked it. I don't know. I guess you could continue the show, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting a sequel, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, you could keep going. I don't know if you could keep going with Joe as a boxer anymore. He's pretty ragged. Mm-hmm. But maybe continuing with like Sachio as a main character or something later on. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good to see that the sequel was also it was also well executed for how different it was, because it wasn't a big tournament or what have you.
Yeah. Something that we haven't mentioned at all in discussing this season in general of Meglobox. It is, still ultimately an Ashita no Joe homage. And I really don't have any experience with that series. I would like to. I would love for someone to throw it out on a Blu-ray. But I'm curious if it's still following any of the beats of that series in any capacity, because that might inform where the story could go if it is.
Yeah, true. I don't really have any experience either, so that would be something interesting to look at, because that's a long-running show too when it was on. So
yeah,
cool. Well, then we can move on unless you had anything else to say. I would definitely recommend people watch that, not only as a sports show, especially the second season, but as like a character study drama type of show as well.
Yep, I agree.
Cool. Kate, did you watch anything this season?
I watched Zombieland Saga Revenge.
Yeah.
and To Your Eternity. But
Oh,
To Your
nice.
Eternity
Well,
is still going, so Zombieland Saga Revenge.
Well, yeah, talk about that then.
I think
It seemed to be good.
I think the second season was an improvement over the first in almost every single way. But we had the added benefit of having everybody's, like, introductions basically out of the way. But, I don't know, Zombieland Saga is still awesome, and I'm happy there was more of it, and potentially even more of it down the road, because they left off on one hell of a cliffhanger, so that doesn't really make any sense. Kind of came out of left field.
Probably one of the biggest cliffhangers I've ever seen.
Yeah. No one was expecting that.
Yeah, I have no idea what's gonna happen now. But more is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, basically. It's like, I will watch more of these characters whenever and wherever. And show said, really? Okay. And it's like, wait, what?
God, it's so fucking good. Zombieland Saga is so much better than it has any right to be.
Oh, completely. It was just joy. It was so funny on the...
Not even just joy, it's like joy and fucking just a lot of really depressing but also hopeful moments thrown in there as well. It's just a roller coaster the whole way through.
It was so funny when you said that on our discussion that you're like, I teared up, and I'm all like, oh good, it wasn't just me, because I thought I was being hormonal or something. I was like, this is really affecting me. I'm like, this is shot just like a real concert. And I'm like, I'm actually getting into this, and I'm like, I shouldn't be getting this into this.
It was so good. Oh my god, I love them all so much. I just want them to succeed.
DJ, they're just cartoons.
I do, and they're cartoons I want to succeed.
They are the saviors of Saga, and they're going to save Saga. And from what we took most of the season to finally learn exactly what they were trying to save Saga from.
Yeah, I still don't really understand the major underlying plot of the show, but I know that the zombie girls are in it to win it, and I will be there to support them every step of the way.
It was so odd, like when finally they were like, we have to do this. We have a time limit. And I'm like, are they going to turn back into dead girls? Like, what's the time limit? What's the secret evil time limit that we're dealing with here? And then we finally get the Yugari's backstory. And then it's like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now.
Yo, if this series ends with them just being dead again, I will throw up.
Yeah, I would. That would be so bad. That would be terrible.
No, that wouldn't be fair.
They should be the eternal zombie idol girls forever and ever into eternity.
I'm glad that Yugiri had like actual story this time.
Yeah, because we went the entire first season without knowing really anything about her other than that she was a famous, a legendary courtesan, and so
which she was so good at being a prostitute that no one wanted her as a prostitute anymore.
Yeah, that was the hilarious part where they're like, yeah, this guy bought out your contract because, like, literally you're so high priced that nobody can afford to be with you.
Yeah, imagine just being that good at sex. Just like, you're too good at it. No one wants to do it anymore.
So she was legendary for a reason.
Yeah.
And she was, like, the perfect courtesan, too, and the perfect, like, Japanese lady.
She was so good. Yeah. Just, like, perfect geisha. Yeah. I like that they gave her, like, a whole arc to sort of be like, sorry that we didn't do anything in the first season. Yeah. Here's a period piece.
Well, now that we know why, like, because her arc was so integral to, like, all the other crap going on, and then it all made sense after that. It's like, oh, I know why you were basically resurrected as a zombie. It's like you have a history with this bartender guy, and we found out finally what his deal was. Kind of.
He's still sketchy as hell.
Still sketchy. It's rooted in, like, mythology, and I had to go look it up, basically, because people were like, oh, he's so-and-so, and I said, who is so-and-so, and I had to go look it up. And yeah, there's a whole, and I'm like, I wonder, okay, so Japanese viewers probably had this figured out way before, and we're still just kind of like, huh? Because it's like he's a mythological figure that was looking for the secret to immortality and came from China and supposedly found it in Saga. Like, yeah.
Okay.
So he's like a mythological figure. So I'm like, oh, so the Japanese viewers probably realize this, and all of us foreigners are like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, that's eye-opening.
Yeah. So then there's a whole thing with that. Like, it's funny because somebody made like an iceberg chart for Zombieland Saga that was like the stuff above. It's like, this guy's a little weird. These girls are zombies idols. That's cool. And then it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and it gets down to the bottom, and it's like like these really intricate, like, so this is what's going on, and I'm like, oh, people figured all this shit out, and I'm like, zombie girl singing, yay. I'm like, oh, that makes sense if he's this mythological guy that's supposedly the embodiment of Saga.
I like how the CG in this season was actually watchable as well.
Yes, that was a huge improvement.
Yeah, the first season, especially like the first like 6 episodes where they start doing CG shit, it was like, oh
that was
god,
rough.
no, it's gonna be one of those.
Yeah.
But they've got it unlocked now, and this series generates a lot of fucking money, so good for them.
Yeah, it's like
I know people that have gone to Saga because of this show, and
it worked.
I'm sure that there are a lot of people doing that.
It worked.
So good for them.
Yeah, the whole... It's so funny, because once I started digging into this happened and this happened, like, it wasn't until, like, the second to last episode that we got a timeline for the dates of what was going on in this episode, and it was all, like, last year. Like, March 2020 or something was when most of the events in this second season happened. And it was like, I'm like, are they gonna wrap this into COVID somehow? Nope, they didn't. But they did wrap into, like historic flooding, which actually didn't take place in March of last year, but they had really bad flooding in Saga in like August of like last year. Like really bad. Like I looked it up and they were like, oh, there's historic flooding and it's 2 people were killed and all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. So they were pulling a little bit of like real history into it, just time shifted. But yeah, that show has some decent mythology hiding behind the scenes, and people that were really into that show that weren't paying that close attention to it should probably go look all that stuff up, because that stuff's crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, because even the show at a base value is also really good.
Like, apparently there's a whole prequel manga explaining Ty's backstory, which explains why we haven't got it into the show.
Is there?
Yeah.
Because I was about to talk about how I want them to do something with her now.
Yeah, I guess that the manga only has like 2 chapters out so far. But it kind of explains where she came from also, which is, I'm like, now we need this in English. So
yeah.
I'm like, because now I need to know. But yeah, I guess shit gets even more crazy.
I like how she just keeps inadvertently just saving everyone.
Oh, it's so good.
She's the hero.
Her whole episode in the season was amazing. It was so fucking bonkers in like the weirdest way. I was like,
just a day in the life.
The day in the life episode. I was like, at first I'm like, who are these girls? And then I was like, oh, they were the girls in the first season, and I completely forgot about it. Yeah,
Saki's story.
Yeah, I was like,
I love them so much, and then like they fucking get up there and dance, and they're so bad. I'm like, oh my god, you're precious.
Oh, that whole dance scene was amazing.
Oh,
like,
god,
you could just tell,
great.
like, everybody was like basically, you know, like rotoscoped motion capture or something, and it was just like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my god, look at these people. Oh, that whole episode was amazing.
Too good in every way.
That episode was amazing. But at one point I was just going, boat races? What the fuck? Yes, those exist. Those are a real thing that exists that they roped in there because, of course, they exist.
Zombieland is like a show that you could put literally anything into, and it will work. Because it's just like, yeah, okay. This show's already conceptually ridiculous, so why not make it more ridiculous? It fits in with the world, and it fits in with the characters.
I like how it's the real life shit that keeps getting me hung up on it. Like, the first season with the chicken episode and the chicken plays.
That was my favorite episode of the entire show.
But then, and that one with Ty, and they're like, yeah, boat races. I'm like, this can't be a fucking thing. Of course it's a fucking thing. Yep, there's a stadium. Okay, Japan. This is a real thing. Okay. It's just so out of left field. I was like, what is this nonsense? I'm like, oh, you have this nonsense. This nonsense is real. Yes, this show is part, tourism promotion.
Yeah, it really is.
Hey, wait. Yeah. Oh, I was so happy with that season. Oh, it was so good. It ended so good. Oh my god, the Live Aid moment in the last episode.
Yeah, the last episode was a masterpiece.
Oh, so good. Everything about it is so good.
Yeah, that entire arc, like the disaster arc, was the best arc in the show.
Oh, everything is tied. Oh, it was so plotted. The plotting was so tight. It was so tight. Everything just looped back on itself, and everything fed into. Oh, it was just so good. It was so well put together.
Agreed on all counts. Kate.
Yes. Yes. Kestrel has nothing to say. Kestrel, did you watch Zombieland Saga?
I watched the first few episodes of the first season.
Oh man, you should go back and watch Zombieland Saga.
Yeah, I got other shit to watch.
Oh, it's so good. I don't even like zombies
Kestrel
or
doesn't like
idols, and I love this show so much.
I will watch any idol show. If there are idols, I will probably watch it.
Anyway, yes, Zombieland Saga. A all around. Crazy ending. Crazy ending. Kestrel, you didn't watch the show, and it's got like one of your dudes in it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm watching Steins Gate currently, so I get my favorite Miyano.
Yeah.
Oh.
We just got to the part where all the shit starts happening.
Yep. Oh man. You know, my favorite thing about that, just to talk about Steins Gate for a second, is that we got the
Here we fucking go.
Cain, fuck off. We got the Attractor Field episode of Steins Gate 2 days after the Attractor Field episode of Tokyo Revengers. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Can we use this to segue into Tokyo Revengers?
Sure.
Please do.
That show is good. And I put a pause before good because it's kind of also really fucking dumb, but like
Yes.
good kind of dumb. Like there's a lot of it that I don't get, and I feel like handshaking is a weird way to activate time travel.
Oh, I don't care about that.
Let alone time travel that the person not time traveling seems to completely understand and comprehend.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well.
I have no fucking idea how that works.
I mean,
at any time, it just like he must have the most extensive notebook in the world. But the notebook can also traverse dimensions along with a handshake. I have no fucking idea how Naruto works. But that's the part of the series where I'm just like, this is dumb.
Oh, okay.
Let's get to the cool stuff.
That's totally different from the part that I think is dumb.
What do you think is dumb?
Well, first of all, let me just say, in the last episode where it's like, oh, the entire world has completely changed when Naruto remembers everything. That's surprising. But I think it's just because we're used to that kind of storytelling where only the guy traveling remembers anything. But, for whatever reason, which who knows if it'll ever be explained, it's kind of
really
nonsense.
Hope so.
Naruto is part of the time traveling process, so he has some special significance in this. So I can see why he retains the memories as well. But
also, why does it work like that?
I don't understand at all, especially since the first time that's not how it was activated, because Naruto is dead.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yeah.
There's so much I don't understand about this show, but when it's actually just gang story stuff, I'm like, awesome, this is cool.
I agree 100% until you ever have to reason with the fact that these are supposed to be middle schoolers.
Middle schoolers?
That I can't do.
Yeah. like Takemichi, I get it. Like, okay, you're a middle schooler.
Right.
You and your friends are middle schoolers. But then it's like Kiyomasa's gang.
Right.
And all them. I'm like, there's absolutely no fucking way.
Like, these guys are in their 30s. They're murdering people. They drink and smoke. They're 6.5 feet tall. They own Tokyo. The cops can't touch them.
So much dumb shit in this show.
And they're supposed to be, what, 12? Like, fuck you.
But it's also still good.
Yeah.
like I'm always really invested in it. It's just so dumb.
Yeah.
You mean you guys didn't smoke and drink when you were 12?
That is definitely the most realistic part of their characters.
Yeah.
The fact that they have an empire that controls Tokyo from the shadows, not so much. Yeah.
I think you're caught up with it,
yeah.
Right, Kestrel?
Yeah.
I think the last episode was probably my favorite so far.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad that there have been a few moments in it that have tried to play up on the emotion, but I don't think it's ever been as successful as it was the last time. And it's finally showing. I mean, I guess it's been showing for a long time, then it's bigger than it lets on, but this is like the moment where it's like, okay, it's actually really big. And I think there's still a decent amount left. Like, I don't even know if they've announced how many episodes it'd be. I'd imagine 2 course, but
I'm pretty
from
sure,
what I understand, the manga is like even another full core of the show won't catch up to where the manga is. So, who knows? Maybe we'll get a lot of this as time goes by and the story will become less dumb, but there's a lot of dumb aspects.
Yeah, and I mean,
it'd be so easy to just say they're in high school.
Yeah, I really don't get why they don't just make them 18. Like, that I can deal with. Yeah, I think the last episode was probably the best. I, do gravitate towards that kind of, as Steinsgate calls it, the attractor field concept. I think it's really fascinating to have like these events kind of converge in a way that you need to fuck with time so much that it can't possibly reach its predestined outcome. I think it's a really cool concept to explore. But yeah, I think in general, even when it's not dealing with time travel, just the fact that Takemichi knows what's going to happen and is just this absolute loser who can't do shit, but he knows that he doesn't have a choice, that he just absolutely has to make up for, the loser that he has been in the past and try his hardest, because otherwise things are going to end up horribly tragic, and the only way that can be prevented is by him taking action and getting the shit beat out of him repeatedly to just make some sort of change. And it's really satisfying when, they get to celebrate their small victory, and it's a long, painful path to get to that point, but that's what makes it so gratifying when they finally achieve something.
I still can't get over the fact that they're like 12.
It's really dumb.
Did you look up pictures of them?
In a way, it's almost enticing for me, actually.
Yeah.
To be like, well, maybe I should check this out.
I elect to ignore it every time they say that. I'm just like, okay, I didn't read that line.
I guess they're probably 15, probably about to go into high school, but still, fuck off.
I wish I was that badass when I was 15.
Yeah. It's like...
I straightened my hair when I was 15.
It's like JoJo Part 3 characters. They're supposed to be in high school, in that case at least, and, they're enormous 7-foot tanks.
Where are the high schoolers? I feel like they're high school delinquents that would fucking just stomp on these kids.
I mean, you'd think, adults would stomp on them, but I think the only times that we've seen high schoolers are to show you how fucking cool these middle schoolers are. They can wreck high schoolers just as easily.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
You're right.
I don't understand why they went with middle schoolers at all. Makes absolutely no sense.
Maybe they looked smaller in the manga.
It's
I don't know.
and I don't care how they look. I care about the fact that they fucking control Tokyo from the shadows, and they're 12.
One of them has a head tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a tattoo going up all the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good boy.
He is a good boy.
Who did that to a 12-year-old?
He grew up in.
He was like fucking 9 when he got it.
He was, yeah. He was, I think, single digits, yeah, maybe 10. He grew up in like a brothel, so yeah, he had a pretty adult experience from early on.
Nice.
Yeah.
He looks jaded.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that was Tokyo Revengers. Vivi, my number 1 of the season. Let's talk about that. This show's fucking wild. I am really glad it exists, and it's weird because I like everything about it. There wasn't any point where I was like, this isn't awesome, but I still, for some reason, I only gave it a 9 out of 10, and I don't know why, but there's something about it that felt off. I don't know if it was too short, I don't know. So I'm kind of interested in hearing your reasoning behind the A- so I can somehow attribute that to what I guess didn't like about the show. Why wasn't it perfect for you? What didn't you like, Kestrel?
Yeah, I think we do have kind of similar thoughts that it, on paper, everything is perfect about it, but it just doesn't resonate as much.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it had just too high of ambitions, and because it was so spectacularly produced from the very beginning, there are kind of unnatural expectations for how incredible the plot is going to play out. So when it's just like, a very good story that, resolves itself kind of neatly, it doesn't quite live up to the level of perfection about the production and the ambitions of the high concept that it introduces, because it's just like kind of a good story. It's not a mind-blowing one. In any sense.
It's something that's been done before.
Like, oh yeah, this is how this story would go, but not like, this is a story that goes with this kind of ambitious production.
Okay, yeah, that definitely sums up how I feel and how I wasn't able to articulate it. It was great from start to finish, but it wasn't something that's going to change the way I look at anime.
Right.
I really liked everything about it, and there were a lot of moments in the show that replay in my head because they were really good, but as an overall product, I don't want to say it's lacking because it was a great show. It's just not the best. It's the best of the season for me, but overall this wasn't a great season for me in general. I am glad we got to see more of Tape's work because I think all I've seen was ReZero.
Same.
And the other guy who worked on it as well, I can't even recall the name of. But there were 2 dudes that created this concept together and ran with it, and I'm really happy with how it came out. And I want more notable creators to put out just fucking sweet original works like this all the time, because that's exactly what I watched anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll add to that, I am totally cool with Studio just putting out a completely original 2-core series every year, because Great Pretender was great, this show was great, they have really high ambitions. I totally get why they stopped doing adaptations, because they have much bigger things in mind, and I think it's working out really well.
Definitely. Agreed. Also, the music in Vivi is amazing.
Of course, yeah. yeah, like I said, from the beginning, I was excited for another Wit Studio original, for the creator of ReZero, and for Satoru Kosaki, because he's one of my favorite composers as well. And, I always mention that he did all the background music to Haruhi and Monogatari, but a notable connection for this series is that he also composed all of the many character-sung theme songs for the Monogatari series, which is an extremely important skill for him to have for composing all of Vivi and Diva's songs in this series. And I really like how the ending theme ended up becoming an important part of the series proper, and ended up developing from, a piece of simple instrumental piano music to one of these big pop spectacles. And
that's probably my favorite thing that Vivi did as a whole, because it did it with the Sing My Pleasure as well, where it's like the robots are singing it, and it's like the fact that they were able to reuse music in so many different ways was super impressive and super impactful every single time it happened, because of how good those songs are in general and how they were used to propel the story forward.
Yeah.
So music, 10 out of 10.
Definitely.
Easily.
Yeah, and the association you already have with those songs. Because, if they were brand new songs that you heard for the first time in the episode, or even if they were insert songs that you heard a few times, it wouldn't be as impactful, I think. But, we end every episode with this nice, peaceful little piano piece, and then, it becomes, it's a big part of the story and of Vivi's development.
It was the Fluorite Eyes song.
It was the Fluorite Eyes song, yeah.
That's the one.
That's the one. And then when you hear it being sung by these robots as they're murdering everyone, it's so chilling.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's so good. Such a good show.
Really effective.
Also, really small touch, but in the opening animation of the show, there's one 2-second part where it's just Vivi singing, and the fucking year counter is just skyrocketing from fucking 2000 a lot higher than that. I think that it's things like that can really turn opening animations from just opening animations into actual integral parts of the story, and I like when things like that happen. That was cool.
An amazing coincidence of this season was, every day at a certain point I watch all the simulcasts from that day, and I watch everything on Crunchyroll in order of release time, and then I watch everything on Funimation in order of release time. And so my Saturdays this season, my last Crunchyroll show on Saturday was Tokyo Revengers. So end that and then go over to Funimation. My only Saturday show is Vivi. And the ending of Tokyo Revengers has the female protagonist falling through a bunch of years flying by to represent the time travel in that show. And the opening of Vivi, which I watched several minutes later, has the female protagonist of that show singing next to a year counter flying by to represent the passage of time and time travel in that show.
We need more things like that.
It was an amazing coincidence. Just like how Tokyo Revengers and Steins Gate, 10 years later, got to the same plot point 2 days apart.
That's another weird coincidence, yeah. Huh. The world is repeating itself.
It's a Mobius strip, just like the plot of Steins Gate.
Oh shit. Are we in Steins Gate?
No. Sadly,
and
no.
One more thing about Vivi, I think in kind of what we were talking about, where it's this stellar production and the story maybe doesn't live up to that quite as much. It reminded me in several ways, and that's one of them, of kind of how I felt about Violet Evergarden. The protagonists also had a lot of similarities in terms of, personality, lack thereof, learning to
badass,
become
stoic
humans. Female. Yeah. And being really great warriors as well. But yeah, I think I've had kind of a similar reaction to Violet Evergarden, where it's like everything about this is too perfect, so that anything about the story that doesn't hit me like a ton of bricks feels underwhelming in that package.
Yeah, that I was in the same boat. I gave Violet Evergarden my top anime that year, but A Place Further Than the Universe came out that same year as well. And like 1 week later, I was like, I should have given it to that because it's just like that show had something that like fucking like stuck with me. Where it's Violet Evergarden had one episode that got me to cry,
Same.
and it was a fucking awesome episode. But like as a whole, it was good the whole time. There wasn't anything that was just like, I don't know. It didn't leave a mark.
Right. Yeah, and I think the reason for me that it felt kind of disappointing was that disconnect, because the show felt too perfect and ambitious in every way.
Yeah.
Like I guess it's kind of similar to what we were saying about like the Lord of the Rings anime. Like it has no choice but to be a masterpiece, or there's going to be some disappointment.
Everybody's going to be disappointed by that.
Yes. That anime film will not be a masterpiece. I am certain of that.
Okay, anything else anybody wants to discuss? For good or ill?
I'd like to talk about Moriarty for just a few moments.
Go for it.
Because that show was way better than I had any business being. So, yeah, this show definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be going into it. It definitely, like, especially towards the end with all this stuff they were just sort of inventing and creating and morphing into their universe, like James Bond, and also creating the bourbon old fashioned and everything. I was just like, what else could possibly happen in this show?
Remember
it was
Maximilian Robespierre, his story?
Oh,
how they
great.
just rewrite history to be part of their universe too.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like, nope, this is how the world's gonna be now. This is it. We're also gonna do some automobile shit. And we're gonna roll with that. The show is so much fun. The ending, which of course, you know, if you know anything about Sherlock, you saw it coming from like 70 miles away.
Yep.
But I definitely sided with Moriarty's like his gang. By the end, Liam, I guess, to be more specific, Liam's gang, William James Moriarty, but because he kind of, and it was a part of his plan. Also, I don't think his plan would have ever actually worked, even if it went off without a hitch. Mainly because the rich people are just going to care about the poor people just enough to get them back working, and then they're going to go back up on their pedestals, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
The outrage over the Lord of Crime would only last so long. Sherlock was actually, in what he did, had way more of a lasting impact than anything Moriarty could have ever done, with his plan to kind of revolutionize England and the caste system and the aristocracy. But I definitely found myself siding with Moriarty's gang more so than him because of how the murders sort of devolved and changed into these incredibly elaborate, like, murders involving utilizing someone's food allergies and, you know, flipping out the jam that you're going to spread onto a biscuit or whatever, and stuff, to just Moriarty showing up in rich people's homes and stabbing them in front of their kids. I was like, oh, okay, so does the show not want me to root for him now? Because it really wanted me to earlier, and now it's turning into, I guess you could root for Sherlock, but also Sherlock doesn't want to bring Moriarty to justice necessarily, because Sherlock is also now a cold-blooded murderer. So it was almost kind of like there are no good guys. It's just more like, who do you morally side with at that point? Like, do you side with Liam in his whole the ends justify the means, or Sherlock kind of with the whole, well, justice and this other stuff will help revolutionize society, I guess. Because, man, definitely by the end, it was way less, look at Moriarty kill all these rich people in inventive ways and make them cartoonishly evil, to just Moriarty is now cartoonishly evil.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, it was a roller coaster. I think it
was.
It kind of changed its identity quite a few times as it went on. And especially at the end, where like the 2-episode finale, he did go from just being a cold-blooded murderer to actually the plan is to make everyone get along and work together, which was kind of weird. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed all of the homage and pastiche of different works of fiction and twists on history and just everything that it pulls together. Like, all the things you mentioned, plus, you know, those are the things that they get to call by name because they're in public domain. And then there's like an arc that has no similarity to anything from Sherlock Holmes, no similar names or anything, but it's just like exactly Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, from beginning to end.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So it's just like, you know, even beyond what it's referencing by name, you could imagine just the wealth of material that the creator had gone through to, you know, just put all their favorite pieces of fiction into this work, and yeah, tie it all together somehow. And the final episode, the final couple episodes, I think they really, the final stretch felt a little bit rushed, like compared to some of the stuff we'd gotten earlier. But
sorta, yeah. It felt weird to wrap up his whole plan in 2 episodes.
And
it felt like it should have been something that took up almost like the last half of the season almost, rather than a couple other mini arcs, like insular stories.
Right, because like even the Milverton story, who I also think is based not only on the original Milverton, but his BBC version, Magnuson, and a little bit of Charles Foster Kane. I think there's some influence from Altman in his character. But yeah, I think, you know, he had been built up for quite a while throughout the season, and I thought that was a little abrupt. I mean, it ends in the way that his story is supposed to end, so that's cool. But then they only had 2 episodes to work with for the entire conclusion to Moriarty's plan, and yeah, that seemed even more abrupt. The weird thing is,
it felt very sudden.
Yeah, the manga is still running, so I'm curious how much of a like anime original ending this was, because it does seem like the conclusion to this story. I mean, there can be more, but this seems like the way to end a story like this. So I'm curious about how much it diverged from the manga.
Yeah, because I mean, it definitely had its Reichenbach Falls
exactly
going on, which they
even called it the final problem.
They did, yeah. They absolutely, they did. Also, Moriarty was inadvertently responsible for creating MI6 and James Bond.
Yes.
Not just one of them. He did both of them.
He did both of them. Yeah, I mean, the Reichenbach Fall part of the Sherlock BBC series did happen halfway through, and its final problem was not the final problem from the original Sherlock Holmes. So, you know, there's precedent for that. But yeah, for a story about Moriarty, the Reichenbach Falls should be the ending, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember, because it's been such a long time since I've seen the BBC Sherlock, I don't think they were, like, buds.
Oh, they certainly were not.
Yeah, because in this show, they're buds.
Which
and
is
they
weird.
Consider themselves, they consider each other friends because of how they think so similarly. And this this anime definitely went out of its way to show that Sherlock isn't never really truly interested in justice.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like he does this because he likes solving problems.
Right.
So he didn't have nearly the problem with Moriarty being this lord of crime murderer than you would think he would. He was just like, no, I want to help you because we're buds.
Right.
I was like, I don't remember you guys ever being friends.
I mean, I think, obviously that's a huge departure from any other version of the story because they are the classic arch enemies. But I think the biggest reason that they are usually and weren't here it wasn't because of Sherlock's character being all that different, because, he's a high-functioning sociopath, as he says. So, I think it's more that Moriarty's character was so drastically different, where here he's, basically just a dark hero who does have, like, a strong sense of justice, and everywhere else he's a complete psychotic maniac. So I think that's the main difference here, and the story kind of works its way to put them in positions where they can ally themselves better than they typically would. And they have Milverton act as a common enemy for them. And
they had Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper, yeah. And a lot of these, the story arcs they go through with Jack the Ripper, and who also, by the way, historical figure, was actually just riffing off of a fictional character from the show. But that story and the end of the Harvey Dent story and the end of the series all kind of followed this theme of, like, it's kind of the ending of Code Geass. So, yeah, the ending, both in terms of the classic Sherlock components of it and the plan that Moriarty had, were all completely expected by the end of it, because they had been building up to it quite a bit.
Yeah, I really don't believe Moriarty's plan would have worked, and I thought his original plan and the one that would have worked, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't it, was when the poor people show up to the party and they ask to use the water, and then the rich dude at first is like, no, you disgusting pores, as the London burns down
That's
around
exactly
them.
what I expected. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I thought, the plan is Moriarty's burning down these homes, and he's going to make the poor people storm the rich people's house, steal their water, and then, like, murder them.
Exactly.
And then you're going to have, like, a revolt against the aristocracy. I was like, this is a plan that will work. All right, this is a plan that will work. And then it turned into, see, the poor and the rich people are not all that different.
Especially
like,
since...
Man,
the entire series so far, including the first part of that story, was kill the rich. So it would have made total sense for him to weaponize the poor as a massive army to step over the rich. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought the
that was
exact
his
same
whole
thing.
yeah, that was his whole MO is, well, if I just kill all the rich people, eventually stuff will be done to alleviate the problem with this, aristocracy-based civilization we have. And then in the end it turned into, I'm giving them a common enemy, and it's just like, that's not gonna work. It would work for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think especially since they do like reference the French Revolution in tying Robespierre into...
They more than reference.
Well, yeah. they rewrite the French Revolution in their own image. But yeah, given that connection, it seemed like it would make total sense. Make the poor rise up and murder the rich. Of course that would be what happened, but nope, not at all.
Yeah, that was, overall, really fun show. So, yeah, I like the ending the way it was. Mm-hmm. In a way, like, I don't want them to really make any more, especially because Sherlock and Moriarty are seen as bros. Mm-hmm. So, it doesn't really work because they can't be against each other when it clearly shows that they're hanging out in Switzerland, eating chocolate and drinking beer or whatever. So, yep. So that was all the shows that I watched. The other one I watched was Way of the House Husband, which is really, really funny if you get the tropes of Yakuza. But that's really all I can say about it. It's hilarious as long as you understand the tropes of the Yakuza and you enjoy a fish out of water story. Except the fish is completely ignorant that it's out of its water. Yeah, I'm good if you guys are for stuff. I don't really have many recommendations either than watch all the Gundam shit on Netflix now.
That's right, yeah, I didn't mention that they also put up the original trilogy and Char's Counterattack. Yep.
Yeah, so definitely watch those, because those are great, and the movies are the way to go, unless you just really want to watch a prolonged series, which is fine, but if you want the distilled Gundam, watch the original movie trilogy.
Recommendations, I will say, in case I did not push enough, watch Fruits Basket Final. Watch all of Fruits Basket if you're not on the final season. For some other stuff, we've got the final season of the Monogatari novels being released in the big, beautiful box set that Vertical has done for each of those seasons of the novels. So check that out. You can now get all three, so you can have all of the Monogatari series that actually matters in three nice, beautiful box sets for the novels. I'll also recommend Your Name, the official visual guide, which is a book that Yen put out that has like a ton of artwork from the movie, production artwork, character designs, background art, lots of commentary on all of those things, lots of interviews with everyone involved in the process. It's basically just like, some of the booklets that you get in Blu-rays, except full book size in terms of length, as well as like magazine sized in terms of page size. So nice big pages and everything. So check that out. You also get to relive the movie through like some stills and descriptions, which is fun. And also, unrelated to anything that we talk about ever, watch Bo Burnham Inside on Netflix.
Yes, that was my recommendation.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kestrel.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's the single best thing I've watched in a long time, and ever, like, it will not leave my brain. I've probably, because they put it on Spotify, and I have barely listened to anything else since it came out. Like, I've probably listened to Inside like 100 to 150 times by now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm in a place, dude. It's so moving and so important, and please watch it. It's like an hour and a half, not even. It's so good.
Yeah, I haven't downloaded the album of the songs yet, but even though I've only experienced that special in any form the day it was released on Netflix, which was over a month ago, I don't think...
Has it been that long already? Oh, man.
It was Memorial Day, I think, that weekend. Yeah, in that time, in like a month and a half or whatever, I don't think a day has gone by that I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly relatable, incredibly depressing, and it's just... I've been following Bo Burnham for like probably 13, 14 years now. Like ever since he started putting out his geeky fucking raps on YouTube, I was like, this guy is awesome. And it's gotten to the point where like every time he releases anything, it's more apparent how he actually feels, and it just comes out full force in Inside. And it's worrying and terrifying and just so important to watch. And it's all the music's awesome too. So there's nothing wrong with Inside. It's a perfect anything, and I love it so much. But I do have a couple other recommendations. I'll just lightning round them because there is a sale going on Right Stuff. Wasteful Days of High School Girls on Blu-ray is 50% off. Fun slice of life comedy show. Oh Maidens in Your Savage Season Blu-ray is 50% off. A less fun slice of life sexual exploration show drama. Written by Mario Kata, who's the best. Silent Voice Blu-ray on sale. It's on sale a lot, but if you don't have it yet, buy it.
Is it just
not technically anime? It's just the standard Blu-ray collection for like I think like $15.
Okay.
It's not technically anime, but there is a Spanish animated movie called Bird Boy: The Forgotten Children, which is one of my favorite movies on Right Stuff for $13. It's super dark and super interesting, super expressionist. And then No Game, No Life Blu-ray is on sale for like 80% off. So if you haven't watched that yet, pick that up.
Kate, any recommendations?
Oh man. No. God damn. I can't think of anything. Nope. I've got nothing. My
I
money.
appreciate the
My
honesty.
money has all been going to like miniature printing and painting stuff. So, yeah. Let me check the new releases real quick. Make sure there's nothing in here.
Your recommendation is get sucked into the expensive, time-consuming world of miniatures games.
I mean, yeah. My recommendation is go buy yourself a 3D printer. 'Cause why not? Because it's a lot of fun printing things.
It certainly can be. Alright, well, I mean, you don't have to find anything.
I can't find anything. I'm useless.
Alright, well then, why don't we wrap the show up then?
Okay. Kestrel, where can you find us?
You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Alexa, fandompost.com. You can follow us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook at Fandom Post Radio. Get in contact with us there. Share our stuff. You can also get in contact with us via email, fandompostradio@gmail.com. I am on Twitter at FullMetalKyoma.
I'm on Twitter at DJ No Style.
And I'm on Twitter at SonicBug. Currently retweeting all of the recent manga licenses from Seven Seas and Kodansha. The Seven Seas is doing that thing where they take a week and then just announce a bunch of titles all at once. So, all right.
Nice.
So check that out. Check out those people, all the manga people. I'm very behind on all things manga at the moment. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Next episode should be probably the first impressions of whatever the summer season is going to be. Check out any of the shows we talked about that if they sound like they will interest you, especially the good shit. And please stay safe and go back and enjoy our old episodes. Why not? Peace out, yo.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Adios.